What? Carl! We have a 2.0 Dev Diary coming up and we don't have any music!
No music, no, nothing.
Nothing!
Well, okay, let me see. Okay, wait, I just got an email from a guy, okay?
Yeah.
An email.
Yeah.
And it was about music.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we...
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay.
That was amazing.
That sounded awesome.
Let's use that.
Yeah, but he didn't leave any contact information.
He's calling you right now. And we are live. That's
Here
the
we
most work we've ever done with an intro video for the Dev Diary, I think. And we're not here alone. We're, of course, here with the special guest, the man of the hour, ScrapMan. Hello to you.
Hello, thanks for having me on here. This has been very exciting.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for this crazy, ambitious crossover that we've done. That it seems to be really riling up the chat right now. I think everyone's excited for this, and so are we. And other than ScrapMan, I'm also joined by Carl, who works audio music primarily at Flashbulb, and it's Carl and ScrapMan who has worked together making music. So, as always, I'm kind of just here as the talk show host, kind of, and you will be hearing a bit from the people who actually made the work that you're listening to and the work that we're talking about. So yeah, take it away. How did this start?
Yeah, and thanks for having me on the stream. It's really cool to do that. Well, this all started with me, who got the task of making music for the 2.0 update, and there's some pretty nice stuff in there, and some stuff that needed some special attention, I thought. And I had seen ScrapMan in action, playing, as the guitarist and composer and all of that in Caterinth. I saw that the chat has picked it up as well. So ScrapMan is also Caterinth.
Yeah,
and I know I've dabbled a little bit with some metal music, and I listened to it and I was like, okay, wow. The lead Trailmaker is also a quite skilled guitarist and a really good metal composer.
Yeah, it's like a match made in heaven. So I guess I can ask ScrapMan, like, how have you? I know obviously you have your own music channel. Have you? I know both video games and music are a big part of your life. Have you done something like this before?
Not on this level. I have done like more like very, very, very indie, like friend of a friend type things where they're like, hey, I have this mobile app game I'm working on. Can you make like a backing track for like this or that? And I also helped somebody score a movie, which was also a very, very indie movie thing, but I did get to see it in a theater, which was pretty cool. So nice. Other than that, it's just been all personal, just for me.
Nice. Some would argue that we're still indie. I don't know if you can make that argument, but maybe a bigger production.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, so it was like music or games that came first for you, because I know both of them are really big passions of yours.
Yeah, definitely. And video game music actually inspired a lot of my musical interests as well. So yeah, they kind of go hand in hand together.
Cool. So I guess what I want to hear now is, we are kind of, without revealing too much, we can tell you that the music ScrapMan has made for 2.0 is boss music. And now I kind of want to hear from you two who have worked together on this, how you went about making boss music.
Well, I sort of reached out to ScrapMan when I realized that there was going to be some boss music for this update, and I of course boss music and metal music in the game soundtrack tradition is very sort of coherent. That just goes hand in hand. If there's a boss, you want some fire guitar riffs to support that experience, right? So I thought that would be a really good place to start. So I called on ScrapMan, and he basically told me what he just told on the stream, which was sweet music to my ears, that besides being an awesome trailmaker and also a good guitarist, he actually had a bit of experience, working with some film and some game sound music stuff. So
yeah, ScrapMan, you're making this vague boss music. What does a boss track need to do? Like when you sat down and start theory crafting on it, was like, what does a boss music track has to do?
Well, I definitely was, I wanted to make sure that I was following Carl's lead on this, because I'm just helping with the one track, but there's other music in the game, so I didn't want it to be too wildly different that it wasn't going to be able to mesh with whatever he was doing. So I basically asked Carl, like, hey, do you have any reference tracks that'll help me get an idea of what you think would fit for boss music as far as the metal sound goes? So that's always really helpful, is having like reference tracks. And for me, I found that whenever I use reference tracks, I go in with the idea of like, I'm going to try to sound something like these reference tracks, and then they end up just being like this seed of inspiration that spawns something pretty much completely different than the reference tracks, which in one way to me is good, because then I'm not like a copy of the reference tracks. But in the other way, sometimes I'm like, is it too different than what we intended? But Carl seemed pretty satisfied whenever I sent him some new stuff. They're like, this is going to work, this is going to work. So that was really nice. Yeah, so that was kind of how it started, was just using some reference tracks as inspiration, and then I would noodle around. I kind of view it as like I'm throwing spaghetti at a wall and then seeing what sticks. So I'll come up with like what seems like 20 different things that I don't like until I find one that I do like, and then that's what I'll send to Carl, and then see if he also likes it, or if it's like a good foundation, and then we'll adjust from there and stuff. So that was kind of the basics of the process.
Yeah, and usually I liked it on the first go. We also had a bit of back and forth on some things, and sometimes I would get sort of just like a guitar riff from ScrapMan, and I would have a listen to it and try to work with it and add stuff, on the side. And sometimes that would mean that I wanted, just one note or a tiny section changed, and being the guitarist he is, it seemed really easy for him to just pick it up and send it back in a new version that worked for me. So that's also a quite smooth process, actually, even though we were doing this like from each side of the earth, basically.
Yeah, the time zones are rough.
Time zones are interesting.
Yeah, me and Scrap have had our own experiences with that streaming together. But I'm thinking we have this music program in front of us that I know nothing about, because it's not necessarily my area of expertise. And this Dev Diary is about music. So far it's been a talk show. But I was wondering if maybe we could dive into some of the magic here in front of us.
Yeah, I think we should do it. Try to break it down a little bit. So we have the music program here. I hope that it is all visible to you guys out there.
It should be. It's showing on OBS. That's usually a good sign.
So what we have here is the all the boss music in its entirety. And the first thing you'll notice is that I have little markers to sort of show different sections, different parts that will play at different times during gameplay. And that is sort of what I showed to ScrapMan initially, is that we need, a high intensity section, we need a low intensity section, and it actually looked. I can show you how the idea is here. So this is sort of a flow chart of what we needed. So this is what I sent to ScrapMan, is that we need some some tiny like pickup to start up the track. We need a high intensity section. We need a low intensity section, and those two need to be able to sort of, you need to go back and forth between these two. We also needed like sort of the same high and low, but in a new, in a new kind of thing. Because if a boss battle goes on for a while, we need some variation. So it goes to another part, and then something to end off with. So that's sort of what I sent over to ScrapMan.
Yeah. Should we give it a little listen?
Let's give it a listen. What we're going to do, I think, is actually try to start with just listening to the stuff that I got from ScrapMan.
Okay, so this is the raw, just guitar.
This is just like drums and guitar.
Drums and
That's
guitar.
what I got here.
All right.
So let's try and have a little bit of a listen. So there's a basic riff for an A section, right?
Yeah.
And now we got some leads coming in. So a bit of some melody here.
I love that part.
So that's an example of what I would get from ScrapMan, right?
Yeah.
What I would do then is to sort of try to make this work within the context of Trailmakers and with all the other stuff that is going on in Trailmakers. So let's try and listen with the stuff that I added.
So that was the stuff that, for the viewers, that's what ScrapMan sent. It's like, you want boss music, here's boss music.
Exactly.
I was like, all right, cool, let's work with that. And you'll listen to the entire track at the end of the stream, so don't worry. But you're getting a few teasers here now.
But here's a little taste of what I would then add and everything together, right? So it's a little more beefy now.
Yeah.
There's some bass, there's some synths. So
I kind of want to know a little bit. Did you, ScrapMan? Did you have a boss fight? Were you picturing a boss fight when you were playing this? Because you hadn't played the actual boss fight.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but fortunately he was able to send me some footage to see what the context was, so I could have like a visual reference to see like what it was going to be going with and what kind of enemy we were fighting and things like that. So that was very useful.
Right, because I've even like played the boss fight, but every time I listen to this track, I can envision like 100 different boss fights. I think it's hit the nail on the head there. Sorry, not to interrupt. You were saying, Carl.
Yeah, what was I saying? I think actually also for you, ScrapMan, there's some interesting stuff in hearing like how these things work together, right? Because you haven't heard everything in isolation. So if you're curious about anything, just go ahead and ask. But otherwise, I can show you an interesting thing. Is that, for example, one of the things that I would do to give it like a Trailmakers vibe is to add this thing that you all know, the Trailmakers main menu theme.
Yes.
It has this instrument called a hang drum or a pan drum, which is the one that goes doom 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 in the main menu theme, right? So I wanted to use that instrument because that's very Trailmakers.
Yeah.
But since it's a boss battle, I also wanted to give it some edge. It needs to be the boss version of this instrument, right?
Right.
So I took that hang drum sound, and I just, as it says here, I just trashed it completely. So in the end, it sounds like this.
All right. I can barely recognize it.
Barely recognizable.
Yeah.
But it is the, OG Trailmakers hang drum sound.
Yeah.
In the context of the track, it goes like this. Let's try it out. Oh, Jesus Christ. It sounds like it's having a hard time. Yeah, that's definitely not working. Let's try and maybe restart this thing, and we can talk some more about.
Okay, well, I can
ScrapMan, right?
I can ask meanwhile. Some people with musical ears have noticed, ScrapMan, that you use a lot of Eastern scales while playing. Something that's not typical for Western produced music. I don't know if I'm just being fed misinformation and that they just wanted me to look like a douche on stream. But like, do you have any sort of like reason for that, like the way you play?
So I know exactly what you're talking about. Didn't intend for that when I went into it, but it's one of the things that kind of naturally seemed to just fall into place as I started working with it. Because so if there's any like super music nerds in the audience, this is even like a little bit more music nerdy than I am by default. I actually had to look deeper into it so I could explain it.
Yeah.
But in metal, there's a really common scale that people, or a common mode that people use called Phrygian, which gives metal that really kind of dark and brooding sound. So my intent was to use that mode. But it just so happens that if you change one of the notes in a standard Phrygian mode, it becomes Phrygian dominant, which gives it that Eastern feel or like flamenco feel. So like it's both used in like Eastern and flamenco music. And there were just some parts of the lead that I was working on where changing that one note just sounded more natural to me than using the standard Phrygian mode. So it's just one of those things that like I was just going with what felt better, and it just happened to fall into place into what is used more commonly in like a Middle Eastern type vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very true that even though it might not be super common in like Western music in general, it's just so common to metal music for some reason. And therefore also common to boss music. So even though it might sort of originate or be used in non-Western cultures a whole lot, it feels kind of recognizable for most people. I would say.
I love metal music myself. I don't know a whole lot, not to say anything about music theory, but I knew there was a reason I probably loved it a lot.
Yeah, that might be it.
It's pretty cool to get the explanation. Like if there are any like musical students out there, metal fans in the chat, I'm sure this is actually a really cool explanation to it. I know it is for me.
Yeah, and also like for me, even though I basically work as a composer, I don't always know what is going on like in theory, right, behind the scenes. So it's really interesting to work with someone like ScrapMan,
right,
and always get some new perspectives on the music that you're actually making.
Right. Looks like you got the software booted up again.
Let's just try and see if it works now.
Let's try to see if it works now.
No, it doesn't. It's completely tanked. It can't handle the metal, I think. Basically, there's just too much metal going on.
It's an old man.
Yeah, it's also...
Maybe you could play just the MP3 file or like the WAV file of that part.
I can.
Since we're not isolating tracks.
I can find that.
Yeah. If you can find that.
Yeah, maybe I think... Yeah, it doesn't even work in isolation, right? That's just a typical example of music software and shit. It's actually it was a huge hassle just setting it up in the streaming room because like the streaming room has so much stuff going on already. But I think actually, fortunately, I have some stuff to show. Yeah, actually, which is not audible but visual stuff about music.
Let's jump into some visual stuff.
Which is something that people might recognize also. So what I do when I start out composing some stuff, that would be using something like this, which is like a sort of a mood board keyword thing to get myself started, and which is also the kind of stuff that if I'm working with someone like ScrapMan, that is useful to showcase. So for all you Trailmakers out there, you might be able to sort of, I hope you agree in my analysis of, the stuff that Trailmakers is to me.
Yeah.
That we have all these different keywords something with tech, something with adventure. There's some indigenous elements to it, like these foreign worlds, and there's of course some space stuff.
And I want to say, because we got proven just a couple of minutes ago that ScrapMan knows his stuff when it comes to music, and we all know he knows his stuff when it comes to gaming as well, not just Trailmakers and his other building games, but he does play a lot of other stuff. Was there anything video game wise when you had to make this? Do you also make a mood board like this, and like maybe even draw inspiration from a different video game that you really liked and you thought maybe you could use some of that?
Not as much on the visual element. I definitely I kind of zero in on the audio stuff for this one. So there were some other games, like I definitely took some inspiration from like the Doom soundtrack, which is like just iconic metal in a video game. And then Carl also sent some like Hades soundtrack inspiration, which has some really great metal like soloing and lead stuff as well. So I kind of just immersed myself in just like listening to a lot of that, just to see like less of like what actual notes am I going to be playing, but more of like structurally, how are they putting things together? How are they transitioning between like the higher and lower intensity things, so that I can use that to kind of inform how I'm going to do transitions with whatever I come up with in relation to that.
Yeah, because it's funny you say Doom, because we did actually have when we were listening to it the first time in the office, I do think the name Mick Gordon was brought up when we were listening to the when we were listening to the soundtrack. It did kind of give me that vibe, which I loved, because the Doom soundtrack is absolutely
I brought up
amazing.
the 7-string guitar for this one.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah.
Which is not a thing you usually have. Like I actually tried to do some stuff similar to what ScrapMan had sent me. Because sometimes, I just want to add something myself, and it was totally impossible with a regular guitar in regular tuning. It just sounds so much more beefy with the extra strings that are just like crazy low.
For sure. All right. What do you have other mood boards or anything?
Yeah, I have this little thing, which is another just like inspirational thing that I had for myself. All kinds of jazz that is inspiring when working with music.
I didn't know Horizon Zero Dawn was big on jazz.
No, it's actually it's really not, to be honest. But what it's big on is actually something that I feel like is a very Trailmakers. Horizon has that sort of combination of like tech and indigenous worlds, cool landscapes, all that stuff, and the soundtrack has that thing as well. I don't know, but that's sort of a core thing to Trailmakers, that sort of blend between the electronic tech stuff and the acoustic sort of real world texture stuff.
Right.
I'm gonna have to try and boot the music up again.
I was about to say, because we did actually bring some other tracks, not just the incredible epic boss track that ScrapMan has made, but there were 4 other tracks we were planning on listening to from the 2.0 update, which has a bit of another vibe.
Yeah. Also, because I can just mention while talking about this that there's actually going to be more than 1 hour of new music.
More than 1 hour?
In the 2.0 update. So a lot of stuff. Obviously, a lot of work went into this track with ScrapMan, because that is such a special thing. But there's also going to be, basically more than an hour of all sorts of other things. Now it's booted up again. I'm going to try it again, see if it works. Otherwise, we're going to have to dig out the old WAV files and just listen to it like that. Wow, that sounds nice.
Now it works again.
Yeah.
Here's the boss track again,
Here's some boss track.
Was it the other tracks that weren't working? Or?
I don't know, but we were going to try to listen to this completely trashed Trailmakers instrument, right?
Yeah.
So what I wanted to mention was that we actually, I actually also to sort of, as ScrapMan says, his music is very boss battle. It's very metal, which is exactly what I wanted. But we also want at some points to keep it, connected to Trailmakers.
Yeah.
The core identity of Trailmakers.
Of course.
So actually, to make some more dynamics between the high intensity sections and the low intensity sections, I actually pulled away all of the guitars and kept like more of like Trailmakers instruments. So for example, I'm gonna play the last part of the high intensity section, where you can hear ScrapMan going crazy with a really nice melodic riff, and then it goes to like more quiet stuff.
Yeah.
So that would be something like this. So for this part, the only thing I got from ScrapMan was the drums.
Yeah.
So without the drums, this is basically all the stuff that I added.
This is a very Trailmaker-y sound.
Yeah, it's that tech sort of. It reminds, it's more closer to the soundtrack from Spacebound, for example.
Yeah. How was it getting that back, ScrapMan, and hearing the gamified bridge and stuff there?
Oh, I thought it just flowed. It transitioned seamlessly. It's like I was like, are there guitars in this part? Almost like I almost couldn't tell if there were or weren't my parts in there, because everything just kind of sounded so seamless. The transition there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that I was able to do that, because I was like, I can't do the same thing that ScrapMan can do, but apparently I didn't really have to, because we actually managed to blend everything. I think another example is this part that we just had. I didn't add a whole lot to that cool part, but I added, some synth underneath.
Oh, there's so many layers to this.
There's so many layers to it. And the synth is basically doing the same thing as the lead, right? If we just solo these.
It's nice hearing them isolated.
You can hear the lead here.
It's hard to notice, right? Oh, yeah.
So there's tons of layers to it.
Awesome. Before later, I told Chad already, you're gonna hear the full track by the end of the stream. We did also quickly want to go over some other things.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a vague spoiler in the titles of these tracks, but we're not going to say more than the title. For example, we have one called Meadows Day.
Yep, that is correct. I'm gonna
we can hear
boot up that and see if it works.
And then see if people can figure anything out based on the titles of these tracks. That's going to be another little quiz in itself.
Yeah, they will have to
I don't know, you probably haven't heard these, Scrap.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I heard these ones yet.
No, so it'll be cool to get your opinion on it. They're vastly different. These are not meant as boss tracks. They're meant as an ambience more, right?
Yeah, basically ambient music to sort of go along with the general gameplay experience in Trailmakers, right?
Right. So here's a few seconds of Meadows Day.
That would sound something like this, for example. I'm gonna skip to some different parts because this one was not so nice. Let's see this one.
Oh, nice. It's like Lord of the Rings-esque kind of.
Yeah, that's totally
that's nice.
the Shire moment.
Yeah, it's high contrast to what we heard before.
Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to show. But the funny thing is that even though we have tracks like this, you will find that there's a few things that are very similar. I actually use some of the same things that is in the boss track, which is like crazy to imagine. This sound, for example.
Ooh.
I use that a whole lot, and that's also in the boss track somewhere. You can see it's called Magic Mallet ARP.
Magic Mallet.
That's the same sound, just trashed a little bit.
I don't think I realized how much work goes into these things before I just saw it, but I am thoroughly impressed. We have another one. Let's move on. Called Meadow Settlement.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. What could that mean?
What could that mean? Let's boot up some settlement stuff.
Let's boot up some Meadows settlement music.
ScrapMan, how do you think this sort of? How does it feel to you? Like, how do you can you see? Imagine Trailmakers gameplay with this sort of music as well as your boss music.
Yeah, I remember you saying that there was a little bit of that challenge of the boss music being so heavy, whereas the rest of the soundtrack is really ambient and more gentle. But using a lot of the similar instruments was a great idea.
Yeah, and also as Johannes said, you might not be able to actually pick it up, but I think like subconsciously, there's a lot going on in sort of just feeling that the track belongs in the world, that everything belongs in the same place, even though they might be really different to each other.
Yeah.
Let's try some settlement
some
music.
Some Meadow settlement music. We are giving a little bit of leaks away here.
So this is obviously the most calm it gets, I guess.
This is mindfulness music.
Yes, with a little touch of weirdness.
Yeah, there is a little touch of silliness in it.
Yes, definitely.
There must be some funny creatures that live here. Some funny looking NPCs you could imagine.
Surely, I mean, obviously, in a settlement there must be.
Yeah.
And I always try to, represent whoever or whatever is in the place that the music belongs, right?
Yes.
So that's some stuff to think about.
Nice. Love that. Then we have another one, and that's kind of the same, except it's called Meadows Settlement Night.
Oh yeah.
So, ScrapMan, what do you think that means? That we have a day and a night track?
Night cycle, day-night cycle is definitely going to be there.
Oh, damn, man. You figured that out fast. Okay, that was a bit of it was a softball. Yeah. I will say that. Okay, what is this?
You're a very good talk show host, I guess.
Thank you very much. So what does this place sound like at night?
At night, it will go
at
like
night.
This. At night. Very similar.
Yeah, but it's a little sleepy.
Yeah, it's a little sleepy.
I feel the melatonin activating in my brain.
Yeah.
My eyes are getting a little heavy.
I think maybe you'll recognize this scrap, but that's sort of like a trick, I guess, is this thing that I added. Very game soundtrack kind of style.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of that at the intro, isn't there, of the boss music?
Yeah, that like all that sort of it's called an arpeggiator. You know about that, the thing that basically repeats notes for you, and it works really well for a lot of stuff. So I use that even here, where you get that sort of all the small notes.
It's like a dream sequence.
It's like a twinkling of stars, right? So for some reason, this just instantly tells me it's nighttime. I don't know why.
Man, you guys are good. The sheer amount of talent that is in the room and on the Discord right now makes a man feel a little small, but I'm honored to be here.
You're making it all happen, right?
I don't know about it all. It might be a bit much. We have one last one before we go and give people the full boss battle track that they've all been waiting for. And that is some combat music. So this is no longer boss music, but this is combat music. So we are back in the same arena.
It's a little closer to the boss music.
Yeah.
But actually, it was still there's still like a huge gap between like you could say casual combat versus like really intense combat. But let's try and have a listen to some
short
of
listen
it.
to the combat music.
Also, I can show this thing, which is basically another thing that shows kind of what's going on when you're playing the game, right?
Yeah.
You get into some combat, and then what I have is I have different parts, just as I did for the boss music. But the clever thing here is that the first part of the track has 5 different variations.
Right.
Then the next part has 3, and the last part have 1.
All
so
right.
Basically, even though you might be going into combat all the time, you're not hearing the same thing over and over again.
Okay.
That's
So
a little,
let's give it a
that's a
short
little
listen, yeah.
trick. Let's see if we can hear some combat stuff. So it's not totally crazy, it's just a little more threatening.
Like it.
And you can hear the Trailmakers pan drum is in here again.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Little closer to the main menu sound.
Right.
So it's clearly Trailmakers, but still combat.
This
That's
is
the idea.
this is gonna be the most completed soundtrack by far in Trailmakers. I don't think any update has ever had. If any, Airborne was.
Airborne had a quite a nice soundtrack, but I can say that not as much work went into it. That is definitely for sure.
So that was some pieces of the first Dev Diary. There was nothing much visual to say about this one, but there are a lot more episodes to go. But this is also just, I guess, to show and tell the viewers that the fact that we're dedicating an entire Dev Diary just to music should tell you something about the sheer scale of this update. And of course, what really brings home this one is that we have ScrapMan on and that he has made what I think is just an amazing track that when we end it now, we're going to transition over. You get to listen to the full track. So thank you so much, Carl, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much, ScrapMan, for working with us in this time, being incredibly easy to work with and really help to elevate the game of this update that we're so excited to show more of.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a pleasure, and thanks a lot for asking.
Of course, man. We're going to talk to you again, that's for sure. But now we're going to send the viewers over to the full boss track from 2.0 by ScrapMan. So don't tune out, listen to it, and I'll see you next time in 1 week.